Every American with a gun, a permit, or even an opinion on gun rights needs to hear this right now. The Supreme Court just dropped a nationwide ruling that changes how federal gun bans get judged, and if you miss what it really says, you could walk around thinking the law changed more than it did, or less than it did. Quick question before we continue: are you subscribed yet? Because most people hear a viral headline, assume they know the rule, and then make a terrible mistake. Hit that button now, because what I'm about to break down could keep you from trusting the wrong advice at the worst possible moment. Here's what just happened. In United States v. Hemani, the Supreme Court ruled against the federal government in a gun case about marijuana use and firearm possession. The outcome was unanimous in Hemani's favor, even though the justices did not all use the exact same reasoning. That matters. Why? Because a lot of people online are screaming, the court just erased federal gun bans for drug users. That is not what happened. And a lot of other people are saying, this changes nothing. That is also not true. Let me break this down for you in plain English. There is a federal law, 18 U.S.C. 922G3, that says an unlawful user of a controlled substance cannot possess a firearm. Marijuana is still illegal under federal law, even if your state says otherwise. That is the first trap. Most people think state law controls everything. It does not. If your state says marijuana is legal, but federal law still says it is a controlled substance, that conflict can land you in serious trouble when guns are involved. In Hemani, the government prosecuted a man based on his admitted marijuana use while he had a gun in his home. According to the Supreme Court opinion, the government relied on his regular marijuana use and said that alone was enough. The court said no, not on these facts. The justices said the government failed to show a strong enough historical tradition for disarming someone like him based only on that record. In other words, the government could not just point at a modern label, call him risky, and win automatically. This is the part that shocked a lot of people. The court did not say all drug-related gun restrictions are dead. It did not say addicts must be allowed to carry. It did not say an intoxicated person can legally wave a gun around. It did not say all prosecutions under that federal law are over. The court was careful, very careful. It said this ruling was narrow. That word matters. Narrow means the result depends on the exact facts and the exact proof. So why is this still a bombshell? Because the court sent a message to every lower court in America. If the government wants to take away Second Amendment rights, it has to do more than make broad claims. It has to show a real historical basis, or in some situations stronger proof that a specific person is actually dangerous. That is a big deal in all 50 states, because federal gun law applies nationwide. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This case also builds on earlier Supreme Court rulings. In Heller, the court said the Second Amendment protects an individual right. In McDonald, the court said that right applies against state and local governments too. In Bruen, the court said when the Second Amendment covers conduct, the government has to justify its law by showing it fits the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. Then in Rahimi, the court upheld a federal ban for people under certain domestic violence restraining orders, saying history supports disarming people who pose a clear threat of physical violence. Hemani fits into that bigger fight. And here's the part nobody's talking about. Hemani tells you the court is not just asking, does the government dislike this person? It is asking, where is the historical match and how close is it? That new pressure on the government will affect cases far beyond one man in Texas. It changes how lawyers argue. It changes how judges write opinions, and it changes what evidence the government may need in future gun cases. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the exact mistakes gun owners make when state law and federal law collide. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because one bad assumption in this area can wreck your life fast. Now let's talk about why this matters to regular people, not just lawyers. Imagine. You live in a state where marijuana is legal. You follow state rules. You buy from a licensed shop. You think, I'm good. Then you keep a pistol at home for self-defense. Most people stop thinking right there. But federal law does not care that your state gave marijuana a green light. That is where people get blindsided. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. Let's say you are driving home after a weekend trip. You get stopped for speeding. In the car, you have a legal firearm under your state law. You also have marijuana products that were legal where you bought them. You may think this is just a traffic tick. But the moment federal law enters the picture, or the moment your statements get used against you, the situation can become much more serious than you expected. Do you see the danger now? The biggest risk is not always the gun. Sometimes it is your own mouth. A lot of people talk themselves into a problem. They try to be friendly. They say, yeah, I smoke sometimes, or it's legal in my state. They say, yeah, I smoke sometimes, or it's legal in my state. That statement may feel harmless. But if prosecutors want to build a case, they can treat that as part of the evidence. Hemani does not give you a free pass to be careless. If anything, it should remind you how fact-specific these cases are. Most people think a Supreme Court win means instant safety. The truth is the opposite. A Supreme Court opinion can help one person and still leave everyone else in a legal minefield. Hemani did not erase the federal statute from the books. It said the government lost on this application, with this proof against this defendant. That means lower courts will still fight over future cases. Prosecutors may try new arguments. Congress could try different laws, and courts may treat heavy use, addiction, active intoxication, or proof of danger very differently. Let me say that again, because this is where people make a catastrophic mistake. The court did not bless gun possession for every marijuana user in America. It did not say federal agents must ignore 922G3. It did not say federal agents must ignore 922G3. It did not say your state medical card protects you, and it definitely did not say, go post your gun and weed on social media because you're covered now. That would be insane. Now, quick legal note, this is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Here's what this really changes. First, it strengthens the idea that the government needs serious historical support when restricting gun rights. Second, it suggests broad category bans may face trouble when the government cannot show the right historical match. Third, it shows the court may want individualized proof in some settings. Not just labels. That last point is huge. Labels are easy. Real proof is harder. But here's the crazy part. The same court that ruled for Hemani also made clear in earlier cases that genuinely dangerous people can still be disarmed. That means if you are trying to use this ruling as a magic shield, you are playing with fire. Courts may still uphold restrictions where the government can show danger, violence, active impairment, or a closer historical tradition. So this is not a revolution where all gun laws collapse overnight. It is a warning shot to governments that weak reasoning will not cut it. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the people who get these updates before the headlines twist them into nonsense. Click subscribe, because when a Supreme Court ruling drops, the details matter way more than the thumbnail. Now let's go deeper into the rule itself, because this is where the real story is. Under Bruen, courts ask whether the Second Amendment's plain text covers the conduct. If it does, the government has the burden to justify the restriction by showing it is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. That sounds technical, but here is the simple version. If the government wants to limit your gun rights, it has to prove that this kind of limit fits with the American tradition of firearm laws. In Hemani, the government pointed to old laws about things like habitual drunkards and other historical restrictions. The court said those examples did not line up closely enough with what the federal government was doing here. That matters because the court is not allowing sloppy comparisons. It wants the why and the how of the old law to match the modern one closely enough. If the old laws did one thing and the modern law does something much broader, the government may have a problem. Let me explain why this matters outside this one case. Once the court raises the bar for historical proof, that logic can ripple through other Second Amendment fights. Lawyers defending gun owners will use it. Governments will try to answer it. Lower courts will have to sort it out. So even if you never touch marijuana in your life, this ruling still matters to you because it shapes how federal courts review gun restrictions going forward. Now, this is where it gets even more important. The court also listed what it was not deciding. It did not decide the legality of bans on addicts. It did not decide bans on people who are presently intoxicated. It did not decide whether Congress could pass a different law aimed at a drug shown to create a special risk of firearm misuse. And it did not decide whether the government could win with individualized proof that a specific person's drug use makes him dangerous to himself or others. That list is gold. Why? Because it tells you exactly where future fights are coming. Here's what most people get wrong. They hear one ruling and act like the entire battlefield is settled. It is not. The smarter view is this. Hemani gives gun rights advocates a strong argument against broad, unsupported restrictions. But it also gives the government a roadmap if prosecutors bring better facts or lawmakers write narrower laws. Some restrictions may still survive. So what should you do with this information? First, stop trusting viral one-line summaries. Second, understand that state legality does not automatically cancel federal illegality. Third, if you own firearms and use any substance that federal law still bans, do not assume you are safe because of one Supreme Court opinion. Fourth, if you are ever in a real legal situation, get a real lawyer fast. Not your buddy, not a guy in the comments, a real attorney. And let's talk practical consequences. If you fill out federal forms, buy from ANFEL, transport firearms across state lines, or speak with law enforcement, details matter. Your words matter. Your records matter. Your timing matters. A case can turn on one statement, one text, one admission, or one bad assumption. Hemani helps on one front, but it does not make reckless behavior smart. Here is another hypothetical example. Suppose two people both use marijuana and both own guns. Person A has no signs of impairment, no violent behavior, and the government only has a general admission of use. Person B has evidence showing dangerous conduct tied to drug use, threats, or active impairment around firearms. Do you think courts may view those cases the same way after Hemani? Probably not. That is the whole point. Facts now matter even more. This information could shape real cases for years to come. Subscribe now because my next video will break down the exact words and behaviors that can turn a routine gun stop into a criminal case, and I want you ahead of that curve, not behind it. So here's the bottom line. The Supreme Court did not erase federal gun law, but it did hand down a major nationwide reminder that the government cannot take Second Amendment rights away with weak history and lazy arguments. Hemani matters because it raises the standard, exposes the gap between state marijuana laws and federal gun law, and warns every American not to confuse a viral headline with real legal protection. If this breakdown helped you see the difference between hype and reality, subscribe right now and stay with this channel. I make these videos for people who want the truth before a mistake costs them their freedom. And one last simple reminder, this video is general education, not personal legal advice. If your situation is real, personal, and urgent, talk to a qualified attorney in your state immediately.